Welcome to Foro Politico. My name is Marcos Palma. Thank you for joining us. Today we will talk about the latest from the presidential election 2016. After the primaries in Oregon and Kentucky, the favorites are still by the Republican side, Mr. Donald Trump, and for the Democrats, the former First Lady Hillary Clinton. Both candidates are close to get the nomination, but everything looks like that in July we're going to have two very interesting conventions. As we mentioned in the last show, the Republicans are divided. With this speech by Mr. Trump, he have created many divisions against Mexicans, Muslims, women, the rich and the poor, against the media. He's blaming us for his mistakes. Also, he had regret many times. Recently, two reporters from the New York Times wrote an article about the way she treats women. 50 of them were interviewed, and they mentioned that Mr. Trump crossed the line with them. A day after, one of these women, by the name Juan Ruber, mentioned that those reports had misled. Also, Mr. Trump had mentioned that was not true that the New York Times reported. Aides close to the Republican candidate has said that people are not concerned about this issue. Quote, voters don't care about these stories. This was from Mr. Paul Manafort. He's one of the campaign managers. I have to tell you that Mr. Trump had used other names like John Miller and John Barron, but Mr. Manafort had denied it. During the last week, many things has happened around Mr. Trump. For example, he mentioned that he would like to have a meeting with North Korea's President Kim Jong-un. He mentioned some of the potential judges that could be nominated for the Supreme Court. Also, he had a meeting with the former head of the state, Henry Kissinger, who was with the former presidents, Gerald Ford and Richard Nixon. I want to tell you that the Speaker of the House, Paul Ryan, has not endorsed Mr. Trump. During his last meeting, both mentioned that they have a very positive reunion, but it still has not joined forces. Both GOP leaders released a joint statement. They argue that this country cannot afford to have a Democratic presidential front-runner Hillary Clinton winning the White House and continue President Obama's policies. After another hot issue for Mr. Trump has been his tax return. During an interview with ABC News, he said that it's not of our business to look for his tax returns. He keeps repeating that he is being audited by the IRS. It's a matter of the question, will you care about it? Well, besides all this, Mr. Trump keeps winning, even though it's a small margin of people that supports him. And when everything looks like he was going by himself, now the Republican Party has decided that they will collect money for his campaign. They are talking about more than $1,000 million. Besides this issue, today we're going to talk about the legalization of the marijuana. Right now in Colorado has been a success, and this idea is growing in California. Today we will have Mr. Steven Figueroa, the assistant to the California Chamber of Commerce, and also we will have Sarai Garrett, the CEO of the Athena Global Marketing Group. Thank you very much for being with us, Mr. Figueroa, once again, and also thank you, Mrs. Garrett. Thank you for being here.
Thank you.
Thank you for having us.
Mr. Figueroa, we're going to start with you. Well, we have another week for Mr. Trump. It's been hard, but he looks like he's surviving. He's prevailed these kind of attacks against him.
No new surprises. This has been happening for an entire year. It's the greatest novella we've ever seen, right? Great soap opera going on. On the other hand, we saw Hillary only needs 82. Bernie won Oregon. Clinton barely won Kentucky, but she didn't need to meet much. She needs 82 delegates. Trump, on the other hand, it seems the more outrageous he is, the more he's liked by the far right. It's remarkable. There's a lot of opinions on what's going on Trump's womanizing, Bill Clinton's womanizing. But you know what? In this election, so much has gone on, it's a dead issue. It's a dead issue. It's coming down to who can put on the best show is going to get the most votes.
Do you think that we still have that kind of celebrity show like Mr. Trump is using the media the way that he wanted, because he said that he hasn't buy media to advertise or to promote himself?
Well, let's face it, the media has used Donald Trump to raise its ratings. CNN's up, MSNBC's up, Fox News is up. Who's using who? And I really don't think they care about the American public. It's all about the ratings. It's all about the advertising. That's what it came down
When
to.
we talk about ratings, Steve, we talk about money. Because besides the ratings from the media, from CNN, from MSNBC, from Fox, we see money. We see advertisers. That's why when Donald Trump doesn't want to be in one of the debates, he trade the networks and saying, I'm not going to be there. But that means money. And that's why they care about the money.
Ultimately, it all comes down to the dollars. And as far as, Mr. Trump and the comments, it seems more outrageous. Well, let's cover that. Let's cover that. And it brings up ratings during commercials. People are attuned to the news stations. Only a few years ago, whether it's 60 Minutes or CNN, all the ratings were down. Now they're up. It seems that the more outrageous, maybe we need to be a lot more outrageous.
More outrageous. And to talk about ratings and to talk about marketing, we have an expert here, Sarai Garrett. She's been for 5 years working as a CEO of the Antenna Global Marketing Group. Mrs. Garrett, we have seen this increase of the millennials caring about politics. And when we say that the media is giving time to Mr. Trump, he's been taking care of, he's taking advantage of that. How do you see that?
Well, I bring a really unique perspective. Specifically because not only am I a millennial, I study millennial markets, segmented markets within the millennial group. Mm-hmm. So when we look at numbers and we have a general idea of how millennials feel about politics, for example, 34% of millennials do not identify with any one political party, although the majority of them vote Democratic.
Why do you think that they vote Democratic? Because of the political revolution by Bernie Sanders? Because we haven't had a leader like him, a Democrat like said, okay, we're going to give away a free college, or we're going to do a citizenship for the immigrants, or we're going to create like a free trade that's going to be out, or we're going to get more money from the rich people. Do you think it's because of that the millennials try to identify with themselves, or why?
This is really interesting. You brought a really good point. I don't really think it's about Bernie Sanders. I think it's about the life that millennials have lived for the last 15 years. Now we have to take into consideration that millennials lived through the housing bubble. Millennials lived through 9/11. We lived through a lot of things that really showed us that our country isn't really prepared to deal with a lot of things. And so most of us are going to college. We have the highest student debt. We have the highest unemployment, right? And when we are looking for a change, a chance to be a part of our society, and everyone's looking at us and saying, well, millennials are entitled, and millennials are lazy, and millennials want everything for nothing. What happens is that we really have to look at the psychology of a millennial. What makes us think the way we think? What makes us buy the way we buy? And what makes us vote? And so what has been happening within the last 15 years is we have been exposed to a world that baby boomers and Gen X don't know. For us, it's hard to have to be one of the highest educated generations and have the highest student debt and highest unemployment. So what do we do? How do we fix that? When somebody like Bernie Sanders comes along, that sounds like a really good deal because we're the ones that are suffering right now. We are the future, and we're experiencing the most, I guess, the short end of the stick. You know, we did everything that we were supposed to do. We went to college, we graduated, and we're coming out of college, we're trying to get those jobs, and we're not. Eventually we will, because that's just part of the evolution of...
I have a question. Is what's happening with millennials, Bernie Sanders talks about revolution, Trump talks about revolution, similar to the Arab Spring? All the Arabs did what they were supposed to. They were going to school, they tried to be better, and what happened? A revolution.
But this is talking about a political revolution. But Steve, going back to those millennials, when Sarai mentioned it about they looking for that kind of leader, the promise. And you saw, for example, Mr. Barack Obama, when he was running for election, he also promised many things, like, for example, the immigration reform that he mentioned in the first 100 days. I will do that, and he didn't do it. What's your take on that? Since now Bernie Sanders, is better Bernie Sanders than other Barack Obama?
It's called politics. When they have to meet the Congress and make a deal with 454 Congress, or 435 congressmen and 100 senators, and everyone wants credit. It's called deal making. Now, Donald talks about deal making, but he can't even get the endorsement of Paul Ryan. So when he gets elected, it's payback time if he gets elected. Same thing with Hillary Clinton. A lot of deal making is going on behind the scenes. That's what happened with Barack Obama. You can make all the promises. I'm going to tell you everything you want to hear to get me elected. What do you want me to do? I need your vote. But when the bottom line is, when you get elected, you got to compromise. Compromise in order
Mr.
to get.
Figueroa, but it's kind of sad. Let me tell you, because when you're a teenager, when you're a college student, you dream to become somebody, to have a very good job. But when there is no opportunities, even though you study, that means the country is now facing that problem.
But
and we have a Democratic president, and you're a Democrat.
This is no different than went on in the 60s and 70s. We had the riots, the student walkouts, the 67 riots after the Democratic and the Republican convention center. Same thing's going on, but what did we get out of that? What did we get? All those kids went to college. What did we get? We got the 80s. We got cell phones. We got screen TVs. Because out of great adversity comes great invention.
Well, that diversity, believe me, even to the people there here in Simi Valley, but we have markets, for example, China or other Asian countries that they produce. United States do not produce. And that's why maybe it will be the opportunity for the millennials. But going back to that situation, sorry, Garrett, have you seen those millennials without a job doing something else?
Absolutely. We're in different times. And I always say, if you think times are changing, you're too late. Times have already changed. We're already in a whole new era. We're playing a whole different game. And millennials are no longer betting on the leaders that say they're leaders. They're not betting on the things that we're told in the media. We're starting to bet on ourselves.
When you talk about that, that's why it's so important that you work in the social media, because you say Facebook, Instagram, YouTube, and many others, like they jump it and say something, but there is a risk using that because they lose credibility. Don't you think so? They lose credibility when somebody says something and
Who loses credibility?
For example, the teenagers, for example, that you can see anything in the internet.
Right.
You can see things, but since they do not have the source of the information, that's not possible that everybody's going to believe that. At least that is already created by television.
I don't understand your question.
The question is that, for example, if we have people, millennials, and nobody knows who's guys, who they are, those guys.
Okay.
If they do not know them. But if, for example, if you compare that decision or that statement by another people that is very well known, who's going to have more power?
Okay, so how are millennials influenced is what you're asking. Millennials are influenced by their peers. And they really are. They trust the people around them. They actually trust their parents more than any other generation. The only thing is they do have very low social trust when it comes to, for example, if I don't know you and you come up to me and you say you're somebody, my social trust with somebody that I really don't know is very low. So 19% of millennials truly trust other individuals that are not within their social circle.
19% you said.
19%.
And when you say 34 of those millennials, they're not identified with any political party, how did you get that number?
Research. Marketing research.
Marketing research.
Yes.
Any source? Any source?
Yes, pewresearch.com.
Pewresearch.com. That's the Pew
That's
Research.
right.
That's not affiliation with any party. We're going to take our first break, but I'll be right back. Please stay in Foro Politico. Stay tuned, please. Mr. Donald Trump saying the Mexicans, they're rapists, they're criminals, they're drug dealers. What's your take on it?
I just think he's somebody that he's just there to distract us. He's there to cause divisions. He's there to create fear and anger and divide. But we have to remember that we have to stay united We need to stay informed. We need to stay educated. And because together we will, as we're united, we cannot let that divide us. So once you start believing that, then that creates divisions. Oh, that person's different, this person's different. No, we need to be united. So somebody like him, we can't pay attention to him because all he's doing is trying to distract us from the real work that we need to do.
Locally, there are people, businessmen, businesswomen in the Coachella Valley, that they support him. What would you tell those guys?
Well, I think we need to understand, so if they're thinking about themselves, are they thinking about their employees? Are they thinking about the people that work for them? So obviously they're not. So they need to stop thinking about themselves and about maybe monetary things and worry about the health of their employees. If their workers are happy and healthy and getting paid well, guess what? You're gonna have a more productive environment. If they're not, then they're not gonna wanna come to work. They're not gonna wanna be productive because again, when we work in a job, it's a reciprocal relationship. It shouldn't just be give, give, give. The employers need to take responsibility and they need to be accountable for the health and well-being of their employees. And if you can't provide decent wages and benefits, well then maybe you shouldn't be a business owner. Maybe you should find another profession. If you don't know how to be a good business owner, being a business owner is not just about making profit, it's also about being productive in the way you treat your employees, the products that you're giving. And because sooner or later, people may say, you know what, as a consumer, I don't want to buy from you, or I'm going to boycott you because I don't like the way you treat your employees, or I don't like the way you do business. So they have to be mindful of that. And unless they want people to start boycotting them, then maybe they need to think a little bit harder about how they're treating their employees and how the community is going to perceive them.
Thank you for joining us once again. I want you to remember that next June the 7th, we will have primaries in California. They're very important because it's important that you will get out and vote. Parties are very divided now. You can make the difference. Your ideas, your vote is secret. Remember, don't let others decide for you. Get out and vote. Also, if you cannot vote, help others to register and keep telling how important this election is. Now, I would like to ask our guest, Mr. Figueroa, about this lady when I asked her about the situation that many businessmen or businesswomen, they're supporting Mr. Trump, and she mentioned about boycott them because she said that they're not really businessmen, that they should do something else because they do not care about the employees.
First, let me say, you talked about voting. We got just a few days left to register to vote. And on our screen down there, it tells you where. Go to California, register to vote. It's that simple. It takes 2 minutes to vote, to make the difference. Whether you agree with me or not, I fight for your right to disagree with me. I don't care. Register to vote, put up or shut up. So when it comes to, I represent small business. I'm with the California Hispanic Chambers, with the Greater Riverside and other chambers. But I'm also the past national vice president for the Mexican American Political Association. I would tell this lady, open up a business. Owning a business, you pay your employees before you even pay yourself. That's one of the things you find out. You're writing checks out there. And sometimes employees don't realize that they're getting more money than you're getting. They don't realize that. But what I also say, she's saying you should treat your employees with respect and dignity. And in doing so, you will increase your productivity. My friend Frank Montez, who's chair for the California Hispanic Chamber, says employee morale is a reflection of their boss. So if morale is high and good, he's treating them good. Even if he can't pay them, they're going to say, you made good to us. We're going to help you out. We'll get that business to them. Remember the UAW? When the economy got bad, they all took pay cuts to save the industry because morale was good and they did what it had to take. But you have to own a business. As far as those business owners, so-called business owners owning Trump, you know what? In many ways, she's right. They're looking for somebody to blame. How do you blame? Maybe they should be business owners. Because if Latinos are coming in here and we're bringing up California's economy and business is being successful and those other people are complaining because their business are not, maybe they shouldn't be in business. The market has changed. We heard Sarit say that later. Change is here. Either change with the times or go to Idaho.
Mr. Figueroa, we're talking about those businesses that they're supporting Mr. Donald Trump. For example,
sour grapes. They're complaining because they can't market their product to the millennials, to the Hispanics, to the Asian. They're used to the same old 1950s crowd. This is the way we did it. We live in a different world. They got to change.
I'm going to put you an example. the owner of the gas station is supporting Mr. Donald Trump, would you go and buy gas in that station?
Absolutely not. In the 70s, we learned from Cesar Chavez the great boycott. We learned from, back then, from various Chicano organizations, the Coors boycott, Adolf Coors. And we were effective. We brought them to their knees, and we can do it again. Boycotts work. It's about financial literacy, targeting your dollars where it does the best. Every time we spend $1 in our community, the bottom line is we generate 16 more dollars. If I have to pay $2 more to go to that local Hispanic or African American or Asian market in my community, I'm going to do it because I'm generating jobs. When we learn that, and it's our responsibility for anyone who considers himself a leader or a parent or whatever, to financially educate our children.
Now I'm going to ask you a political question to Sarai, Mrs. Garrett, about how would you handle that situation? Because you're a marketing expert. If you have the owner of the gas station and he's supporting Mr. Donald Trump, how would you ask him to advertise his business? Because by one side, he's supporting a guy that is not well known by the Latino community. What would you tell him?
Well, I'm going to give you my personal opinion. I'm not sure how many millennials I'm speaking for. I feel...
No, don't worry, we don't know either.
Okay, good. My personal opinion is that we are fighting for the right to choose. And what's happening here is that whether we choose left or right, there are people who want to make sure that we are punished for that choice.
It shouldn't be.
I don't know.
Well, what's your opinion? Tell us. Should we punish? Should be punished because of that?
I think we have the right. I think we have the right not to buy goods from companies that we...
That's a good point, Mr. Figueroa.
I concur. The boycotts worked, and they can work again.
But you're blaming the businessman. You're blaming the business. Because at that time, they're going to lose business because you're going to point it out, okay, the man is sell gas to the Latinos and is he supporting Trump? I mean, he's going to lose business.
Too bad.
But he's also going to gain business. Okay, it levels out at the end of the day. It levels
I don't think so in California he's going to win business.
We're really missing the point here.
Okay.
The point is not who supports Trump. The point is that we still have Americans right now that support that man. That is the real issue. The real issue is that we're seeing across America, we are supposed to be so much more advanced than what we're seeing today. I look at the media, I look at what Trump is bringing out, things that should have been over with during the Holocaust, during World War III. World War II, we're so over that, or we thought. But what Donald Trump brings in this political party is really a really good picture that we have progressed zero. It's not it's not what he believes. It's that people follow him.
So the more things change,
having those beliefs.
More things change, the more they stay the same. That old saying.
You know, I thought we had moved past. There's so much racism. There's so much hate. There's so much talk that is not progressive at all.
But you know, it's our responsibility to challenge that and to say, you know what? I'm in the grocery store and they're telling some people speak English. You know what? There's a First Amendment right. They can speak whatever language they want. I'm sorry if it upsets you. You know, if you have a psychological problem that other people are speaking a language you don't know, go see a psychologist. That's my answer to them. And I speak up. That's me. I know other people are in fear of speaking up, but you know what? We've got to learn to do it. Because just because they tell us to be quiet, we've got to learn to respond and say, no.
But the worst part, Mr. Figueroa, is when somebody is affecting your money, when somebody's taking out your money. That's what I put the example. And we have seen it, that nobody has done that in any other states. Oh. What happened, for example, when he blamed Univision, Jorge Ramos, and he said, I'm going to cancel my ads with Univision. Not going to put anything more ads on Univision. And who lost at that time? Univision? Who lost at that time?
Well, you know.
But he has that right.
Actually.
Just like we have the right to boycott
Univision.
Companies also have the right
to do that. We have the right to do that.
Univision is now more popular.
I don't think so. I don't think so. Believe me, I don't think so because they lost money. They lost money because he said about.
Let's
and
look at it
plus
this way.
he was going to sue the Univision because he mentioned $500 million. I don't know if that happened, but he trades companies. He used to trade companies.
He makes a lot of threats
trades
because he's
to
got
people.
lawyers. But, I'm still waiting for. I'm challenging him. He still hasn't accepted to the debate. I whip him. I don't have to pay $1 billion to whip him. So. But what I'm saying is, we recently experienced, and we're ignoring here, in 2008 in the housing crash, millions of Americans quit making their house payments. That was a boycott against the banks. And look what happened. We brought the banks to their knees.
Yes,
That was not a boycott against the
A lot of the
banks.
people, they were walking away from their mortgages.
But that wasn't a boycott. That was an economic situation.
But that was an economic situation, but until today, nobody's in jail. Nobody is paying the price. Who's paying the price?
Well, let me tell you what I saw.
Oh, but wait, let me finish. What I seen, that many people lost their houses, lost their jobs. They had to go back to Mexico, but they couldn't afford it because there were some banks that they fix everything. That way they can get a loan, and then finally they lost the house. But at this time, the owners of the banks, even though you mentioned the economic situation, I would like to see them in jail. It's what Bernie Sanders has said. It has been repeated.
You can't put people in jail who legally are allowed to do what they do.
Legally?
Legally.
They do what they do?
Look, when a homeowner signs those documents, they are entering a contract. The government bailed out the banks, not the people, and we saw that. The banks got the money. They kept their banks open. And the people were the ones who lost their homes.
But when you have seen people that they do not even know the language, I know people that they do not know, they mislead those
Their
guys.
signature,
Yeah, but their signature,
unless they can take that to court.
But you know, there are many crooks. There are many crooks. They
Alan
don't
Greenspan
sleep. They do not sleep.
Alan Greenspan was quoted as saying he had access to over 900 economists with a PhD, and he could not understand the mortgages that were being sold to these individuals. I met with Alan
They were
Greenspan.
ridiculous.
I met with Ben
I
Bernanke,
agree.
and I've met with Janet Yellen. We are still suffering. The bottom line is we didn't have the political will. They were not only too big to fail, but they were too big to go to jail. Bottom line, they broke the law, they got away with it. They made it look legal, even though it was illegal, because too many politicians had their hands in the pot. You had Dodd who had his hand in the pot, Elizabeth Warren who's been fighting this cause. Who knows, maybe she'll be the next vice president, depending on who chose. But you're looking at a person who, I do go to DC and I discuss these issues with federal regulators. And that question's brought up all the time. Why didn't anyone go to jail? And the bottom line is, I can tell you, I had Fred DeMarco, who was head of the Fair Housing Finance Administration before Mel Watts, tell me it's not going to happen. Fred Curry with the OCC, when he was with the FDIC, told me, Steve, you want these people's head on a stick. I go, you doggone right I do.
But they're too big. I mean, and this is what millennials, this is the world that we're growing up in. And this is part of the reason why we don't trust institutions. We're getting to that point where we just want to live our life according to how we feel fit. And this means that the reason why millennials, first of all, millennials do not like to be labeled. A lot of millennials don't like the word millennial because there's negative connotations attached to that.
Why? What is
the negative connotations attached to millennials is that they're lazy, they're entitled.
I haven't heard that before. I haven't heard that before.
You haven't?
Have you heard that?
Okay.
I've heard many things about millennials.
No, but that negative.
Absolutely.
I've heard
Absolutely.
millennials want things their way.
No, they're not. Never. No. That's another Donald Trump situation that they say Mexicans, they're rapists, they're drug dealers, they're criminals. No.
And millennials are what?
Millennials. No.
Yeah.
Let's start with millennials. I'm going to take a break, but thank you. Stay with us, please. Visualize this country with a president like Mr. Donald Trump?
I can't, right? I can't visualize it. I always say I'm from the future, right? And what that can translate to is that I'm from a time of unity, where beyond a state of androgynousness, where nobody's entirely male nor female as far as their perspective goes, but everybody's treated equally. And I feel that on a global scale, unless somebody can step up and advocate for equality, then I can't necessarily respect the platform that they're using on a political level.
Si pudieran hacer una obra de arte relacionando al señor Donald Trump, ¿cómo sería?
Obvio, tampoco nada negativo, pero tampoco algo que tiene que enseñar nuestra lucha, que es algo que hemos venido aquí a estos países a hacer, y enseñar lo que es bonito de nuestra raza y la energía que traemos a estos países. Pero obvio,
¿Qué mensaje tiene para Donald Trump?
no, pues que se ubique más en las cosas que hacemos y no nomás en los personajes, que no, como dice, no leas un libro por su cubierto, pues, ¿me entiendes? Y que sea más paciente y que abra los ojos más a lo que venimos aquí. No
en la onda de Donald Trump, está bien lo que dice, yo entiendo, es cosa de la política, pero también tiene que abrir sus ojos a la forma de que también expresamos nuestra arte por medio de este medio. Donald Trump no conoce a la historia mexicana. Tenemos varios artistas como es Frida Kahlo y lo que es de Diego Rivera. Entonces, en la historia de México es puro artista. Y aquí estamos en Estados Unidos. Entonces, el decir que somos violadores y todo lo que dice él está mal, porque hay más historia atrás de México. Tenemos una cultura tan grande que son los mayas, los aztecas, y él no lo está viendo.
That event we showed you just happened in Palm Desert in the McCallum Theater. There were many Latin American artists that they presented their art. There were dancers, musicians, and painters. And going back to the millennials, you see those guys, they were millennials.
Yes.
And then they said, like, I never heard, going back to that point that when you mentioned that they negative, that
The negative connotations,
but
right.
I never heard that.
That's
I
good.
Never heard that.
That's
because it's
awesome.
another bad thing for them. Because plus, they said they have no jobs.
Right.
They owe a lot of money, and then they're lazy.
Right.
I don't buy that.
And entitled.
And that's bad.
Thank you.
That's bad.
That's right.
That's bad. But who creates that? Do the media creates that?
Well,
Or who wanna believe that?
Well, what happened was that markets were changing. And so people wanted to know why the markets were changing. Millennials are buying different. We do things differently. And that affects the economy. So then marketing and advertisers started looking into millennials and who they really were. They started studying them. And now I feel like millennials initially were labeled for marketing purposes. And I feel like we're really the age where everybody just wants to point a finger. I look at baby boomers, I look at Generation X, and the people that talk about millennials like there's something wrong with us. I mean, I have to look at them and say, well, you guys are our parents, so what did you do here? What's going on? Why do you feel that we are entitled? Why do you feel that we're lazy and that we want everything for nothing? It's a perception. And I always talk about this perception. I feel like we're in a time where somebody wants to point the fingers. And unfortunately, millennials are the upcoming generation. It happened in the 70s, right? When during the Vietnam War, the baby boomers were changing the world. And so millennials are changing the world in a lot of different ways, and people are trying to understand them. And they don't think like baby boomers. We are very different. See, we were brought up by people who said, you don't work hard, you work smart. So then when millennials are starting to work smart, we're being told, no, don't work smart, work hard. You have to pay your dues. So there's a lot of things going on here in our societies where we're being told one thing and we're trying to become that. And then we're being told by the same people that told us that we can have the life that we dream about, and the life that we dream about looks completely different than the life that you think we should dream about. So there's the disconnect.
You know, I got to compliment what she's saying. Over the weekend on CNN, they compared what's going on right now to 1910, when the Industrial Revolution at that time was changing America and multiple jobs were being lost. And at that time, we had just come off a Great Depression of 1906, and we were entering in a time where the airplane was being invented, cars were coming online. Half of America lived in rural America. Half of America didn't have electricity. And what we have today is people I agree with her, baby boomers who are afraid of computers.
We are afraid of computers. I know many people by our age, Mr. Figueroa, that we are afraid of computers. Not just the Latino community, but many people. But it's good that some old people, they try to get into the new technology, the new iPhones, the new computers. But however, this also is doing a revolution about the political things that are happening, because we haven't ever seen, for example, what happened in Egypt when they have the revolution in that country, in the Middle East. That way they can create. If we talk about terrorism, the way that they can communicate, or what happened in Paris, with the way that they can communicate. Also, that's the technology using by the BICE.
That was my statement earlier, that we're experiencing our version of the Arab Spring right now. Social media is active in our politics. That's what drove the Arab Spring, access to social media. And that's what's happening now. You see, I now have best friends in New York I've never met.
Well, now that we're talking about the social media, Mr. Figueroa, we can jump it into the money that the people can get from I mean, the candidates can get from people, because with social media, for example, we can see Bernie Sanders, how much money he has been collected, $20 by using the social media. Mr. Barack Obama did the same, and now the opposite with Mr. Donald Trump, that he can collect millions of dollars. I mean, thousands of millions of dollars, even though without using the social media. Do you think that's a power in people using the social media?
It's empowering the unknown people. We have GoFundMe. We have multiple people to fund. If you have enough hits on your Facebook, they want to advertise on you. But going back to Donald Trump, anybody who gives their money to Donald Trump is an outright fool. He's worth $10 billion, he claims. Why does he need your money? If you're that dumb, I got a bridge to sell you. So on the other hand, Bernie Sanders has been effective. My mom, who's a Depression-era mother, compares Bernie Sanders to Roosevelt in much of the same way. We've come out of this Great Depression, and he's making promises of social reform and financial reform, just like Roosevelt. On the other hand, she looks at Donald Trump and she compares him to Herbert Hoover. Some of the same comments that Herbert Hoover used to make that took us into the Great Depression. And as far as, again, raising money, it's giving the little man a voice for the first time. I only got $5, but times 10 million other people, I helped some. I made a difference.
We see that's a very powerful tool using the media to get money. And then, do you see the millennials that way, that they really want to give money to some ideas, even though you mentioned, yes, only
absolutely.
24 to now.
Millennials love to buy products that contribute to giving shoes in people in other countries. You talked about GoFundMe. There's so many platforms. Millennials don't have a lot of money, but they're very cost-driven. So if there's something that they believe in, they will definitely find a way to make those contributions, even if it's a little bit, because they want to change the world in any small way that they can. There's a lot of platforms right now online that are doing exactly that. Now, when we look at Donald Trump and the kind of funding that he gets, I look at our candidates right now and I'm just upset. I think that we have to get mad. I think that we have to, something has got to change, okay? And it's not about, I'm looking at two people that I'm not very happy with. And I talked to a friend earlier in the week, and he mentioned something about, you go with the lesser of two evils, right? But I'm not okay with that. Why should we settle as the American people to go with the lesser of two evils? A change has to be made so we're never stuck in a situation like this. I feel like raising my hand sometimes and saying, hey, can I run? Please. Look at these people. I mean, 8 years ago, people were afraid of the candidates. Today, that is nothing compared to the candidates that we have running right now. Donald Trump is, I don't even want to say that he's dangerous. I can't take him serious. There's something wrong with the man who can say the things that he says and get away with them. And so then that tells me that there's something wrong within America who's actually believing and following a man who talks the way that he talks. He's hate, he's anger, we're going backwards here. So for me, it's not only about our candidates, it's about the people who are voting for them.
What about the other side?
It's about the numbers.
You mentioned Trump, but what about Hillary as a woman?
Just because I'm a woman doesn't mean that I'm
No,
going to
but
vote for the woman.
that would be the first American president, in case that she won the election. Would make any difference? Or she's using just the gender as Mr. Donald Trump has mentioned.
What
Like
she's
I
been
said,
accused of, yeah.
she's been accused of.
You know what? You can't win. It's either your gender or your color. We saw that 8 years ago, right? Your gender or your color. And it's not about that. I think that it's really, we're in a dangerous time because it's no longer about the people. Everybody wants to have a voice, but they're voicing their opinions in the wrong places.
But you're not right.
The people shouldn't be ignored anymore. And we shouldn't sit here and be okay with the candidates that we have. There has to be a system that needs to be
this
put into
situation-
Then to be
place.
changed completely the
Yes.
system.
I ask you then this. What do you think about Mark Zuckerberg meeting with the conservatives? Mark Zuckerberg, a millennial, being accused of controlling Facebook's message and not allowing free speech, eliminating the conservative.
What is the
voice.
difference between him and any other media? We all know this. It's not news. It's not new. We know that the media controls 85% of what you do and buy every single day has something to do with the media that you consume. That is not new, and it's not new news.
It's on forever.
So we
the media
just need to be aware, and it's really about being aware and breaking free from that whole world. I know I'm in marketing, I'm in advertising, but I'm talking about the things that really affect our way of life. And politics affect the way of life that we lived. They affect our future. So if we want a future that's really we're going to leave a future that's going to really raise up our children, the systems that we have in place right now in politics are killing us.
Since you're a marketing expert, how true are those political polls? When they say, okay, this is the percentage that they're going to make it, and then at the end of the election, everything got confused and they were wrong.
I think that I like to think of monopoly a lot. I feel like
And there's another manipulation, not just by the media, by somebody that makes those polls.
I feel like we are not just ignorant with what really is going on in America, but we have taken power away from ourselves by allowing certain things to happen that shouldn't be happening. In politics, we allow candidates to run that shouldn't run for presidency. Why isn't? We talk about freedom of speech. People have been reprimanded by the things that they've said. Why isn't Donald Trump?
Why isn't the American electorate holding them accountable? We're voting
Thank you.
for them.
Not even the electorate, but their own parties. Their own parties.
And you know what? I'm tired.
What happened in Nevada this weekend? They're out of control. They try. Mrs. Botzer, she feels about her safety.
You know,
he mentioned
I'm
it.
gonna agree.
Not just Republican and
I'm gonna
Democrats,
agree.
but we see a very huge division.
But we're seeing transitions, revolutions go on everywhere. Barbara Boxer is my mom and dad's generation. And what we saw was the millennial saying, we're tired of that. That's old school. We don't want to hear it anymore.
Hold it, please, Mr. Figueroa. We have to take another break, but I'll be right back. Stay with us.
Sé que se tiene que ir, me gustaría hablar más con usted. El tema presidencial, la retórica antiinmigrante, la retórica de los mexicanos, de los latinos, que son violadores, que son narcotraficantes, que son ladrones. ¿Qué sintió usted en ese momento cuando escucha ese tipo de retórica?
Sí, qué lástima que la gente americana está escuchando lo que dice Trump y otros contra los inmigrantes, contra los mexicanos, que mis padres son mexicanos, contra varias gentes. Qué lástima que los americanos están escuchando eso y están diciendo, yo creo que quiero votar por el Trump. Lo que nosotros como latinos, como mexicanos, americanos, lo que necesitamos hacer es ir a votar y mandar ese mensaje, que vamos a poner una latina, una mexicana americana en el Senado y no vamos a poner Trump en ese sitio de presidente.
That was Loretta Sanchez, that she's running for the Federal Senate, and the opposite is Mrs. Kamala Harris. And it's going to be another interstate campaign, another confrontation, political confrontation, Mr. Figueroa. That will be the first Mexican-American in case that she won the election.
History's been made. Either the first Mexican-American or the first Caribbean. Or, remember, Kamala Harris is half Indonesian. So we're going to make history.
And from that, Mr. Figueroa, I got this question. Is race a factor in any candidate, in any election? Should be a factor? I mean, is people going to vote because of the race or because of what they do?
You know, in California, it's different to the rest of the nation. I don't believe race matters in California anymore. In statewide elections. In local elections, it does. In many communities, like Ontario, where you have 80% of the people Hispanic, but you only have one Hispanic on the council. So apartheid exists throughout California, and there are enclaves of it. But we also want to talk about John Chang, the first Asian American to run for governor.
It could be Mr. Villaraigosa, the first governor.
Against Villaraigosa, Galvin Newsom, who actually pushed gay marriage through, which became a national issue. So, I mean,
then race will be a factor in that race.
Right. I mean, we're making history any way you
What's your take, Mrs. Garrett?
I don't know.
You don't see a race as a factor in elections?
Millennials don't.
Millennials don't.
Millennials don't.
Then they do not care.
We don't care, but let me tell you something, because we don't see the difference between color and gender. We really don't. It's really about being human. And it's not as much as a factor as it is really telling of the times.
But
that's where we're at.
When you see, for example, in the Riverside County, that they have 5 Americans, they don't see Latinos, and most, the 50–60% they're Latinos. Don't you think that there is something that is not goes to what the people they govern?
Well, I think that there is some pride associated with somebody who's running, who's the same ethnic background as you, right? There's a pride, there's a certain level of pride there. But for millennials, it's all about who can deliver for us, because we're done with the politics. We are done with the salesmen. We want to see results.
Well,
we really want a better life for ourselves.
I'm going to put you this example.
Okay.
I've been working in the media and radio and television. And I don't see in CNN, in MSNBC, or in Fox Television, any Latino in prime time. And then the millennials, they do not see, they don't portray themselves. How can you tell me, oh, they're not going to reach that level? Never.
Let me tell you something.
Give me an example. There was one guy on in CNN 5–6 years ago, prime time.
See, that's interesting.
And then he got fired. And he's in Florida doing his own radio show. But that's why I don't see that.
The way I see that is it's a matter of time. And this is why race isn't a factor. Really, it's not really race that is a factor. It's when Hispanics, when other cultures are running and winning, it's really telling of the times that we're living in. Right now, I think we all know who runs the media. And so it's only a matter of time before you start seeing the Hispanics,
But would you like to see it then?
Who wouldn't? We are a prideful, just like any other demographic. We are proud of our people. We are proud of where we come from. Mm-hmm. And the way that I see it, look, let me tell you something. I know that if I have a goal, I'm gonna make that goal. And if that goal means being on CNN and anchor, the first Latina, I just want to know that I'm on CNN because that's my goal. Now, millennials are that way. Everybody else, I can't really speak for, but I think that we really need to look at who is running the show here. And so if you don't see Hispanics, I'm going to tell you right now, it's just a matter of time. Whether it's Hispanics
Did you see
or
as a matter
any
of
other.
time, or do you see something else, Mr. Figueroa?
I see something else. I see the lack of financial literacy, even in media. And I go this way.
You're saying financial?
Financial literacy, how to target our advertising dollars, okay? Because that's what's driving the media. It's as simple as that. And when Latinos, especially since we have almost $1 trillion in economic power, learn to say, we're going to watch CNN because they have a Latino person there. Mm-hmm. Then we're going to see more Latinos. When we go to a movie and a Latino actor's there and he makes it, we're going to start getting we're going to get Oscars and Grammys. We don't do it because we don't support our own. Just like we're not voting like we should, we're also not targeting our dollars.
It really comes down to I think you said financial literacy. The way that I like to see that is we're getting out of a place where our parents and their parents weren't very educated. It comes down to education. Who are we? Where are we going? And what vision do we have? We need to empower each other. And Steve, you know this, the Hispanic Chamber of Commerce is big on empowering specifically Latinos so that we can get into the CNNs, the CNBC, and with the big players.
The way that I would like to see is like, for example, the African American, they have their own newscasts, their own television shows, but I don't see it yet. How long will it's going to take it to do that? I do not know. But I've been working in radio and television for a long time.
You don't see that yet for who?
I don't see yet a Latino face, woman or man, in prime time in those networks.
And even when
I don't know how long we'll take it.
Even when we do, they buy us out. What did NBC NBC bought who, right?
All I'm going to say is I have hope for
I have
our future.
So for you, congratulations, Mrs. Garrett, because you're too young, you're a millennial. Maybe you will be the first Latina that you have a few words. If you want to say a few words before, because we're going to conclude in 20 seconds.
In regards to what?
Millennials,
Okay.
the millennials, what will be as his position in about talking the presidential election, how to get involved in politics?
Get involved, get angry, make a change, because what we have right now in our systems as far as political isn't cutting it. It's not going to cut it for our future, and we really need to start thinking about what kind of future we want to leave for our children. The systems we have now are not working, and they need to go. Get mad, make a change, and come to the Hispanic Chamber of Commerce convention, September 21st to 23rd, 2016. Look us up and get more information, because that's where we're going to start building our leaders of tomorrow.
Thank you, Mrs. Garrett. Mr. Figueroa, you had the last word. Last show you were challenged Mr. Trump. Would you like to do it again?
I'm open challenge Donald Trump. If you get this message, debate me. As far as I'm concerned, you're debating a bunch of wimps. I agree with you, because you haven't debated one Chicano yet, one real Latino yet. So, you know what? I don't need $1 billion to tell you. I can whip you. You talk a lot of smack. Come on over. I beat your friend Joe Arpaio, and I'll beat you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Steven Figueroa and Mrs. Sari Garrett. Thank you so much for being with us. It's been an honor. On behalf of everybody that makes possible Foro Politico, thank you very much. Good night and see you soon.
Buenas noches.